This is Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Hey, this is Governor Christie from New Jersey. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
Welcome, everyone. You're watching Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show. It is November 8th. We are in Thanksgiving mode. We're very thankful President Trump won. That's one of the things, I will be letting people know on Thanksgiving, around the Thanksgiving table, what am I thankful for this year? That is going to be one of the things I am thankful for, amongst many others. And it is really great. I mean, I kind of had an idea when Kamala's spokesperson came down and said, she's not going to say anything tonight. She's going to go to bed now and we'll talk tomorrow. I knew that's when President Trump had this. Although all along, I think I was saying that the president's got this, And I think last week, and it looks like have they called the Nevada seat yet? Or is it still kind of up in the air?
No, they're really slow on doing it. The votes are almost all in, but I guess there's always a mathematical chance. I haven't looked at those numbers that that Masto can get ahead in the Senate and that Harris can pull ahead there. So they're very cautious about that. Arizona is a little further behind because Arizona is like in the 77% range, I think, so far.
Was Alaska called?
Alaska.
Why would they not
call Alaska? Yeah.
Why would they not?
But they not.
What I done? This is your map. This is your map for president. And honestly, you and I were pretty close on Mark. Frankly, we both
because I went with Virginia. So
let's see your map. Hold on.
Yeah, I think the final number may be 312, and I was a little right there. So,
let's see. You were.
We'll see.
You're at 302. So by Price is Right rules, you'd win. And this is, I think this was Mark's map. No, I don't know whose map this is. This might be your. Hold on. I wish I had named all. I think I started naming at the. Okay.
The only sad things were Neil Parrott. I don't know if Neil can pull it off in Hogan.
Yeah,
Hogan's not going to win.
Hogan can't. He can't. But Parrott. It's Delaney's got like 51%, and there's 82% of the vote in.
Yeah, it can happen.
It's still mathematically possible, I guess, but it's getting tighter. It's just the chances are dimming. Because I think he's what.
And this is your Dave. This is your map. You were at 300.
Sorry, I wasn't optimistic enough, except in the case of Virginia.
Yeah, I tell you, if you traded Virginia for Michigan, you'd be more.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find mine.
Hey, look, anytime if we're by predicting 300 or better. That's a lot better than virtually any pollster or pro out there. I think
we were better. Honestly, we were much better than a lot of others. This is my map.
Better than Nate Silver.
Yeah.
By the way, we were better than what's his name? Lichter.
Alan Lichtman.
Oh, yeah, he's horrible.
Lichtman. Oh yeah, we like Lichter though. Bob Lichter we do like. But this was my map. I was at 315. I was wrong. I didn't call. I basically picked Virginia, but I did. If I had swapped Virginia from Wisconsin, I would have been right on the money. But you know,
that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty good. So we're a fairly optimistic bunch. I mean, once again, I think we did much better than the pros did. I think on a lot of. I mean, how much conversation did we also have about? Media was like, oh, you know, we could even have a 269 tie. It'll go to the new house. How's that going to look? You know, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, we're not close to that.
And by the way, we were also really good on the Senate side too. Much better than.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we did pretty good on the Senate side. Yeah, I think
I think Nevada might be. I think we can still pull off an upset in Nevada or Arizona or both. And then we're looking at 55 seats.
Yeah, I mean, Lake, she's within striking distance. I mean, there's still a lot of votes to be counted. And Gallego, I mean, there is a green candidate there, which I'm assuming has been pulling from Gallego. Otherwise, I think Gallego wins his hands down. But you know, I still think that he's Arizona. You know, you pick a better candidate. You probably would have won this outright.
Oh yeah, remember on our other show we had George Allen. His brother was telling me there was another guy that was running, and he lost the primary to Kerry Lake, and he would have been like a slam dunk.
Didn't we carry Arizona?
Yeah,
Trump did.
George Allen's brother lives out there. They were talking. We had him on with Governor Ehrlich a week before elections. You know, that's what he was telling.
Yeah, I mean, think about just Pennsylvania. I mean, you know, McCormick flipped it this time. You know, much better candidate, right? So I think that the Republicans have shot themselves in the foot so many times over the last 20 years by running bad candidates in winnable races. So we came so close. I mean, Michigan was really close. You know, Wisconsin was really close.
Yeah,
we finally got Sherrod Brown out. You know, good candidate. So we, you know, Republicans are going to learn something at this point in time. Hopefully,
I think so. And I tell you, I think if Larry Hogan, if he had not bashed Trump and focused on just abortion. Because he was just reacting to what the left was saying, right? If he had just gone on the offense and talked about the high price of milk, eggs, and butter, he probably could have beaten also Brooke. Because how is she gonna defend high? What is she gonna say? Well, the prices aren't really that high. Like, what is it, Joe and Mika? You know, I don't know what kind of fancy butter Mika is buying at $7 a pound, you know, but she's probably buying the Kerrygold butter, which is brought $7 a pound.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked back at the history of the Senate races, you know, in recent times, but I mean, Hogan's in around 46% or something like that, which is remarkable in the state of Maryland for a Republican to run that way. You know, Trump did not get 46% of the vote in Maryland.
No.
So that does kind of show you, at least on the surface, that you have to kind of be that Hogan kind of Republican to even have a chance.
I mean, like I said, our next governor will probably be Councilman David Marks or somebody in that vein, you know, of Baltimore County. He probably will be our. Then again, I don't think he'll ever run for governor, frankly, but Dave probably would be a good candidate for governor. I think Steve Shue would be another excellent candidate for governor. Alan Kittleman would be an excellent candidate for governor of the Howard County executive, you know. And remember, guys, Richard Nixon lost the presidency, and then he also lost when he ran for governor of California. But he came back. So just think about it. Don't say, you know, oh, we lost, so we're not going to run for governor, you know.
Yeah, who I don't think's coming back?
Kamala Harris.
You know what was the interesting thing is that Tulsi Gabbard says, you know, thinks that she's going to run in 28. And I'm thinking, like, my first reaction is kind of like, no. I mean, not if the Democrats have got any brains, which you know.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, James Carville, Democrats all have one brain collectively, and James Carville had it, and he basically said the wokeness. He goes, we can't talk about transgender stuff when people are paying absorbent amounts of prices at the grocery store and at the pump. And I was just baffled by some of the Democrats I was on the show with over when I was on News Nation Tuesday night. These Democrats, I tell you, they lie to you, and they're so convincing when they lie to you. I think that's why half the population buys into those. There's this guy, he was from DC on the show. He goes, "Oh, we've always had a better economy under a Democrat president than a Republican." I go, and I felt like saying, "Are you on crack?" But that'd been wrong if I said that. But I said, where's your proof? He goes, do the research, and all he's doing is watching CNN and parroting Jake Tapper, because he started, when Jake talked about the Red Mirage, he started talking about the Red Mirage. And Walter Tejada, the former Arlington County Board of Supervisors chairman, he was on, and they all brought, by the way, I had a great response to their January 6th comment. And I think more Republicans should be using this. You basically talk them through this. I go, so you were mad. Were you mad that people illegally entered the United States Capitol, and invaded the Capitol building? And they go, yeah, we're mad about that. I go, okay. Now, why are you just as mad as that as you are about people invading America, entering the United States illegally? And they go, no, that's completely different. It's apples and oranges. No, it is not apples and oranges. It is the exact same thing. If you're outraged by January 6th, you should be also outraged by the illegal border crossings and the invasion from the southern border. That is what you should be. But these people, they're such hypocrites. They can't do that. And by the way, Walter Tejada, who goes, oh, these illegals are going to save Social Security because I go, how are they going to save Social Security when they don't pay Social Security tax? He goes, well, but when they go to the supermarket, they pay taxes there. I'm like, yeah, as a former Board of Supervisors chairman, you should know tax dollars there stay local. They don't go to the federal government. Federal government gets not a penny from the sales tax. So no, it is not. Stop lying about how illegals do pay taxes. I pay those taxes too. It's not like legal citizens don't have to pay those taxes. So yeah, I schooled them on their January 6th comments.
Yeah, I mean, from on the one hand, on the economy, the numbers that they generally use to kind of measure how the economy is doing seem to all be pointing in generally the right direction. However, that doesn't really get to what people are going through, right? I mean, and that's one of the things where people either switched their vote or came out and voted for the first time, because how many times on this show, have we pounded away at the high price of, bread and eggs, and you talk about butter, and you've talked about cookies and the M&Ms, and a long list of things.
By the way, Halloween candy, you know what my cost was for those the Halloween candy I bought? I bought 4 boxes. It was over $100. 4 boxes of candy.
Yeah, I mean,
you
can go to Costco.
That's where I got them from.
Yeah, you can go to Costco, but I mean, the price per for those big bars is still running 80 cents or more per.
Yeah.
Right. I remember the days when they used to be like a quarter.
I remember they were 35 cents.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, and
I remember the 55-cent Cokes too.
I remember as a child going to the store and buying those kind of candy bars for 5 cents.
Yeah. CVS, when they were People's Drugstore, they do it a couple times a year. They'd have a sale where you could buy, they'd either have Hershey products or Nestle products, and it was like 10 for $1, the big size bars. That was
yeah.
They had Hershey had crack.
The giant ones. You love those things.
Yeah, I do. But did they stop making the Hershey crack? Is that what's called, the crack? What do they call it? The red. It was red.
Right.
And it was like
Crackle. Yeah.
Oh, it's crackle, not crack. Okay, maybe that's why. The guy at the store looked at me funny. I go, "You don't have Hershey's crack?"
Crackle with a K.
Do they even sell Mr. Good bars? Because I haven't seen many of those around either.
I don't know. I mean, some of that now I think has become a little bit more regionalized and
Yeah.
depends upon what is up. I mean, there are things that aren't sold anymore, and there are old candy bars that kind of went away that some companies revived. Because my mother, besides Hershey's chocolate, the other candy bar she loved was Clark bar.
They don't make those. I bought a Clark bar.
But you can find them if you go online. You got to be paid through the nose for them.
Last time I had a Clark bar was when I went to go see Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I bought a Clark bar at the movie theater over in White Flint.
I remember Reggie bars. Reggie's can't.
Yeah. Reggie, did you know that Babe Ruth sued Baby Ruth for their Babe Ruth bar for copyright infringement or something like that? And
I thought that's why they went with Baby Ruth. And
no, he didn't want them even using Baby Ruth because he was, playing on his name. Because what do you call the Ruth bar makers? He goes, well, that's what I called my daughter, Baby Ruth, But your daughter's name is Penelope, though.
Well, Dave Thomas's daughter's not Wendy.
Actually,
that was a nickname. That was a nickname.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny though. I think it was actually one of those Saturday Night Live. I think I saw that on Saturday Night Live, or I think it was Mad TV. They were talking. And the guy goes, and the weather reporter goes, "But your daughter's name is Penelope, not Ruth. So how do you call your daughter Penelope Baby Ruth?" Oh, Mad TV, that was hilarious. They had some great characters. There was this character named Miss Swan, who was hilarious. She played your stereotypical Asian. But I thought it was funnier than Mad TV. I mean, funnier than Saturday Night Live. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of sad faces. Did you see Donna Brazile and Nancy Pelosi had a few words yesterday at the concession, or Wednesday, I should say, at the concession speech at Howard University?
No, I mean, how do you think Joe Biden feels? I mean, it's kind of like, is it a little bit like, ha ha, maybe I would have been the better candidate overall because you threw me under.
But he was really happy. He was the only Democrat smiling Wednesday morning.
I'm sure he was a little conflicted in the fact that the way he was treated and thrown under the bus versus the fact that the party, the Democrats got wiped out this time, and so they're going to be on the outs for at least 2 years.
Yeah, and I think let me tell you, I think if we can pick up Georgia and hold North Carolina, we're in good shape because a lot of the seats that are Democrat seats. A lot of these seats we're defending are safe seats. They're like Trump won states, And I think if we could take out the little lady from Georgia and hold the North Carolina Senate seat, we're in good shape. Really good shape.
Well, I mean, and a lot of that's going to really depend this time. I mean, the midterm elections have not been particularly great. At least the last midterm was not great for Trump.
The best midterm was President Bush's 2002 midterms, where we picked up seats and made Tom Daschle the minority leader.
Yeah. So there's a lot. We have a lot of promises that were made. We know that a lot of those promises were just promises, empty promises, because that's what politicians do. Because they can't. They can't. They're not the ones writing the laws, and they're not Congress themselves. They can only hope that Congress will pass things that they want to.
But here's the thing: we have, and this is the funniest thing. I was talking to somebody today who said they didn't vote for Larry Hogan because all the Republicans were going to ban abortion, right? And I go, I can't get 5 Republicans to decide where we're going to go to lunch, how do you think 54 or 55 of them are all going to come to the same, agree on the same thing? You know, I mean, you know, the old joke, you know, I don't belong to any organized party. I am a Republican. We're not that well. I mean, the Democrats snap into line. You know, you saw the Democrats in 2020, they all started dropping out and endorsing Joe Biden. So it's a two-man race with him because Bernie was going to get the nomination. Let's just face it. Bernie was going to be the nominee in 2020 if the Democrats didn't play their backroom parlor game deals. And I think that's where they made the deal that, hey, Kamala, you want to be vice president and drop out. You know, Pete Buttigieg, hey, you want to be transportation secretary? You know, but that is the one person I am so happy is leaving. It's like he would be the worst when it comes to being nobody, there was no rock stars in the Biden cabinet, but Buttigieg was the worst.
Best is Rachel Levine leaving.
Yeah. Well, you heard President Trump says he wants to fire the Fed board guy, Powell.
I didn't think he said that, but yeah, Jerome Powell.
Yeah,
no, he was asked.
But Powell says that, you know, he's got a 4-year deal. I mean, you know, Trump can choose not to renominate him in 2026, but his term ends in 2026. So it doesn't look like, you know, he could actually do that. Trump should, you know, when it comes to the Fed, it's like a lot of things. You just stay out of it. You know, they should let them do their thing and not politicize the Fed and all that. You can nominate, you know, people to serve on the Fed, but that's it. Don't go there and browbeat them, and don't go in there and say you're going to fire them and whatnot. That's part of Trump's, you know, problem. But I think Trump by 2026, you know, if everything else goes, you know, right, the interest rates that we see today will not be the interest rates we see in 2026. The Fed will gradually ratchet those things down as long as other problems don't pop up. You know, one of the problems we're going to have is that, you know, Trump waived all these tariffs out there during the campaign. Not a good idea, you know. So hopefully that goes virtually nowhere.
That's where
we can focus in on what we need to do. I mean, the economy is not horrible, but there are issues with it. You know, Trump isn't going to be able to solve, you know, high prices.
But if he's able
right away,
if he's able to kind of hold the line on inflation or cut inflation, you know, I think we're looking at a good midterm. We're not in such good shape if, say, inflation keeps going up, you know. And
it needs to you know, basically not do what Biden did, right, which is spend money. You know, Trump was terrible at that in his first term. Was that, you know, and the Republicans in Congress didn't do anything to hold his feet to the fire. Now they have Congress has got nothing to lose. The Republicans control Congress. I think they can hold his feet to the fire this time around because he's out. This is it. He's 4 years and he's gone. So there's no threats really from Trump on this, you know, except that maybe he wouldn't campaign for them. But at that point in time, I don't think they really care. So I think the Republicans have got to go back to being fiscal hawks and trying to solve this problem. I mean, our national debt is out of control. It's, you know, it's getting worse. Quit spending all that money. Fine. You know, you got to love Elon Musk. Will Elon Musk actually get, you know, some position of some sort, you know, like they were promised? But I mean, you got to love it, right? Department of Government Efficiency, Doge.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk about using AI and trying to help to streamline a lot of this government sort of work and government functions. So,
well, I think, you know, here's the other thing. I think we're also going to see a lot of federal civil servants. By the way, I also was told this by the liberals, the leftists on the panel on News Nation. You know, when I made the comment, well, you know, I go into HHS, I see like more than half a dozen that are like all they're doing is spending time on Amazon and buying stuff in Facebook opposed to doing job. I go, there's a lot of a lot of them are dead weight, and it'd be nice if we just get rid of all the dead weight. And he goes, "How dare you? Those people are some of the they make sacrifices to work for the federal government. Yeah, what's the sacrifice? Tenure, 100% job security. I don't know what the sacrifice. I don't see the sacrifice. I heard there was a time allegedly where government employees weren't paid as well as the private sector, but they're paid much better than the private sector now.
Yeah, I'm for cutting as much government as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if be a top priority. Well, that and the top priority, securing the border. You stop bringing in 5,000 migrants a day. I think Trump will try to do something with Ukraine and some sort of deal there. Maybe something with Israel. He's the guy trying to make a deal. I don't know if he can make a deal in the case of Ukraine or Russia, but I think he's going to try something there. But I think the key is the border. I think is a pressing issue right now. So I think that's going to have to be number one. And I think Trump will have allies. The mayors won't admit it, but a lot of these big cities are really under siege with all this. And so I think the mayors of the big cities may very well try to help if they can, because they don't like it.
By the way, I don't know if you heard anything about this despicable scam, and I think it's being done by Democrats that are sending African Americans, hey, you're going to report to this plantation to pick cotton.
Yeah, I heard about that. I
want to bet it's a Democrat that's doing that.
Well, what was the point? Do you know? I don't know who's behind it or what the point was.
It was just it's basically trumpet their little narrative that Donald Trump wants to put all blacks in internment camps and stuff like that. By the way, when do we start bombing MSNBC, Don? Didn't Rachel Madcow say she's going to be hauled off into the gulags? I think I still saw her on MSNBC yesterday.
Yeah, she's still around. So, I was looking for this thing while you guys were talking about, because you just mentioned that federal workforce, and I was trying to find out where the thing I read in the journal. So here's what the journal said about the federal workforce. Since January 2021, the federal workforce has increased by 120,800 employees. They added as many workers in the last 2 years during the prior 13. Okay. So yeah, there's plenty of waste there, right, David? It's like what are we doing? What are we doing with 120,000, almost 121,000 more federal workers? That's unbelievable.
And I'm willing to bet that has to do with the IRS. I hope we get rid of all those extra IRS agents that were hired to go and go after people that can't afford to pay their taxes or something like that.
So okay, you want so let me say this. This is how they increased. 9.4% at the EPA. Ag department had 9.6. HUD had 10.7. Here you go, 14% at the IRS, Dwight. Energy department, 14.8%. Must be all that clean energy, Green New Deal stuff. State department, 18.4%. Health and Human Services, 18.
Well, it takes a lot of people to count the money to give the Iranians over there at the State Department. They got to count that money by hand before they give it to the Iranians.
Yeah, the FTC, which is anti-business, 11.6. Anti-business Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, the Elizabeth Warren creation, 9.8%. The SEC, 11.1%. Defense went down 1.2%.
Well, I should take that money from the IRS and move it to DOD.
Well, here's the thing.
And the money from EPA and move it to DOD.
Well, to get these things done, we'll need to keep the House, it seems to me. And then once you get the House and we've got the Senate, we can make real changes probably to the bureaucratic structure. But we'd have to, I think we need to go.
And I think we will. It looks like based on what races are yet to be called, I kind of scrolled through. The Republicans, I think the Republicans have the numbers to win. It'll still be a thin majority in the end.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this is the Republicans' problem, and has been this for a long time, is that they have really got to coalesce and stick together and do their job. I mean, Dwight alluded to the fact that Democrats, we've known, you want them to call to action, you want them to get behind something, they generally do that. They rarely ever defect. Republicans are kind of like all over the map. They have all these things they want to do. Think about the House Speaker, all that nonsense to fight about the House Speaker. So, they've got to do it, and I think they really need to think in a 2-year time frame. It's like, look, we've got 2 years or just under 2 years to show the American public that we are going to be able to pass significant policies that will improve the American economy, improve how your status of living. I mean, when Donald Trump starts bringing out the old Reagan thing about are you better off today than you were before kind of thing like that, then you're saying, okay, yeah, are you better off today or not? Some people say yes, some people say no. It just depends on how where you've been in the economy. But if they don't want to lose control of Congress in 2 years, they really have to be thinking about, okay, we've got to really get down there, do the work, so that we can show the American people why we need to keep this job. And I think they stand a chance of doing it, but they have got to they've got to find their fiscal hawkishness that they used to have. They were good at one point in time, and then they abandoned it during the Trump years. But this Trump term, they need to bring it back and say, no, no, none of those garbage spending. Let's get.
We actually do need more austerity measures, which we've never had a period where the government actually was imposing austerity measures.
Austerity is tricky though, because Great Britain they took some pretty severe austerity measures, but you can go too far where you choke off your economy.
Yeah, I'm not saying we go the way the Greeks or the Germans. Well, the Greeks never went there, but the way the Germans. By the way, speaking of that, Saturday Night Live had a funny skit there where the Greek gods get together because of the Greek currency collapse and all that. And all the Greek gods are like, oh, I'm all about fun. They ask Dionysus, and so I believe in partying. And Apollo's like, I'm all about the sun, and so on. So they go, maybe we should ask our friend, the German god of austerity. You have this German guy coming. He's like, we got to cut this, we got to cut that. And everyone's like, no, we can't do that. And then he goes, I'll just write you a check. Is what the German god of austerity ended up doing. But I think austerity might be a harsh word, but perhaps we do a little trimming. We trim the hedges a little bit. Let's take $1 away from every government department. $1 for every dollar they just do that. That actually will go a long way. I mean, $1, maybe, if we want to be more, maybe $5 for every dollar the federal government gets, we get $5 less, which is, I think, substantial. We could do that. That would help with waste, fraud, abuse. I think we shut down some of these agencies that are just nothing more than nuisance agencies, out there that are just there to obstruct free enterprise and business. Let's do that. I think we could reduce the staff at the IRS. We could reduce the staff over at HHS. I mean, they've got those. I mean, this is not even talking about HHS in the suburbs, but HHS in DC. They've got a lot of employees down there in those buildings. Can we just give people early retirements and have them go away, and do that away?
I have a friend of mine from church, and she works for the IRS, and so she's worked there a number of years, and she's just a few years away from retirement. And this past year, she married a co-worker, and he's close to retirement as well. But we had dinner at their house 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half anyway, and then another couple that was there. The guy he's a veteran VA judge, and government workers, good salaries, and this woman who works for the IRS is she's talking about their bonuses that are coming up and stuff like that. And the guy who works for the VA, because he's a judge, he says they can't have bonuses because they can't have anything that looks like it would influence their decisions in these VA cases. And my wife and I are driving on my way home. We're like, bonuses to IRS employees for what?
Yeah, what are the qualifications?
Why are we paying this money? You know,
Yeah.
this is look. This goes. I mean, my father. You know, this goes back. I still remember back. You know, in the 70s. You know, when he was working for the Federal Reserve, he was complaining about the size of government then. This was over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, to watch that and the bloat in government. I mean, I just
Don,
cited 100 under Biden, 121,000 more people are employed in the government. Exactly what are they doing? What are we getting for that? You know,
mhm.
it's just
See,
unbelievable. Yeah.
Don, in the 70s, the federal government was in the my 400-pound life area. We're at the 1-ton family size now for the government. It's like 110. You know, even if we go back to the 1970s, we're still, I guess, 600 pounds, 500 pounds, overweight at that point. But we're not as bad as being a ton. And that's what we're like a 1-ton, we're like the 1-ton family show where everybody's like 600-pound plus or something like that. And that's where we are, as a government. We really,
And I think you guys are right in terms of cutting, trimming a little bit or whatever. You could. I was thinking about what Bob Ehrlich did when he came into office, right? When he looked at state government, and they looked at all the unfilled positions, and that's the easy place to start. You say, maybe we just, on the attrition, we just don't fill those positions anymore. They're not necessary. So, with a change in administration, there are a lot of political appointees that float around through the system, right? Look at those positions and say, do we need to award our people positions that are just because of the political position, or do we start getting rid of these things and all the positions when other people retire and leave government service? Exactly what did they do? Is their job critical? Maybe AI has a role to play there too, or can do some evaluation of some sort. Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that AI can do and will do a lot more. But it seems that everybody who's in charge of the government, whether or not be on a state or federal level, they tend to be afraid to cut. They don't want to cut those government employees, and yet that they need to do that. We want.
mhm.
Are we not small government people here? The conservatives, do we not believe in a smaller government? Let's take an axe to this thing. Let's do something.
And I remember when they cut the defense, they basically they did that for DOD. They trimmed things down, they merged bases, they shut down bases, and I think we should do similar things for other agencies. Like, can you imagine if we did that for HHS? Like, first of all, we have the National Institutes of Health has 27 agencies under there, one being NCATS and NITAC and so on. And do we need a NITAC when we already have a better organization called SOUP? Or if we have the GSA? I mean, we've got the GSA. I mean, do we really, another contract vehicle? I mean, we could streamline all of the contract vehicles they have, to maybe just 2 or 3. I think we can also do other things to trim the fat, like, let's just give out anybody that's like 5 years away from retirement. Let's just say, hey, you take early retirement, we're good, and that way we've unloaded a lot of, and you just don't fill those people that retired. You don't need to fill those positions. You just promote from within, and you just move everyone up, and then you just don't fill the very bottom runs, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you can, I mean, one of the potential pluses of Elon Musk getting involved somewhere, and people like Elon, and maybe Elon brings other people with him from the business side. Maybe some of the other tech guys will come in with him. Maybe some of the finance guys like Bill Ackman will come in with them, and they have this thing. I mean, I would rather have the last thing I want to do is create another cabinet position, but I would rather have a Department of Government Efficiency than the Department of Education or something like that. And then, where the Department of Government Efficiency, their goal should be to put that department out of business, is to make the government run.
And I don't know why we can't do what Congress. We have 435 members of Congress, right? Doesn't matter if populations change. You lose some here, you gain some here, right? why can't we just do that like with the government departments? No more new departments, or we just keep the original departments that the country started with. We don't need, we don't. EPA should not be its own. It should still just be an agency. NASA. If anybody should be a department, NASA should be its own governmental department. They actually do stuff at NASA that's actually useful, and we get byproducts like corning and Tang orange juice. Those are, we need to highlight the agencies that are doing things right, and basically shame the agencies that are doing things wrong, like HHS.
Yeah, but I do kind of like the idea, though, what you're saying in general, though. I mean, it's like, in essence, follow a corporate model, offer early retirement, make, throw that carrot out in front of them. And that way, that's what corporations do, that so they can basically say, we're trying to trim down and become leaner and everything like that. And so, government needs to be smaller and leaner.
And everybody should be happy because everybody's going to get promoted up one level, and the bottom run is the one we're not going to refill. And that's the way it should be, frankly. And then that way you give people more responsibilities. And if we were to let, opposed to having like rewarding agencies that spend all of their money and punishing agencies that don't spend their money, that it needs to change. If a government agency has $250 million left over at the end of the budget cycle, they shouldn't lose it, and they should not be penalized with less money the following. That extra $250 million, that just gets banked and taken over to the next year. You don't get a raise, but you still have that extra $250 you didn't spend last year, which you can use. I know they think $250 million is pencil dust, but it's a little bit more than that, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, David.
Well, I think for these things to happen, we need to keep the house, and then you can start looking at civil service.
I think we're gonna keep the house, but I'm willing to bet we're gonna have a couple of little John McCains in the House Republican caucus that may try to offset apple carts.
Yeah, and I don't know that we can balance them with any good Democrats. But I just wonder in the
there are no more good Democrats. There are.
I know
there are.
The Democrats stay home, don't they? I mean, in essence, they're pretty loyal to the party. Mm-hmm. They rarely ever
only
cross
Democrat
over unless there's a vote that actually means nothing. I mean, where it doesn't affect the outcome. But yeah. The problem for the Republicans is that if they wind up with the same kind of slim majority that they just had, then they can't really afford to have some of those guys peel off. And people that were that are in some tight districts where the races are tight, those are the ones that are in danger, where you say where they may I don't know what they're going to do. Now I think since this is Trump's final term, I think the overhang effect too of how people act may change, because I think there are several who may have endorsed even bad policy because they were worried about Trump retribution. Now it's like, look, you don't have to worry about that. We're now in a phase where we want to prepare J.D. Vance potentially as the next president of the United States. We want the path to be there for the VP. So let's unify around that, because I think Vance is far more likable, and he's far more articulate. I mean, I saw I've seen those people, the people were floating, said too bad you shouldn't be able to have the vice president also be the press secretary. He'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, he made a really good move in his chief of staff selection. She's kind of like Donald Trump's Karl Rove. She's kept him on message as best as possible,
Yeah, and look at that campaign. Compared to the last campaign, where it was just a tumult, right? I mean, people being fired, all kinds of,
I don't think we're going to see that in this term. Remember how if it's Thursday, somebody's been fired at the White House? I mean, who could forget Scaramucci?
Yeah.
I mean,
fastest.
He hired Omarosa. I mean,
Yeah.
really kind of goofy, dumb things that he.
I mean, honestly, if you watch season 1 of The Apprentice, the season she was on, there is no reason you should be hiring Omarosa.
I know it's mind-boggling. I think
You would have been better off
Trump was
hiring
more
Sam
aggressive.
Solovey. Yeah.
But yeah, Susie Wiles is going to be great, right? I think she's going to be good in the sense anybody who can actually get Trump through a campaign like that, kind of kept him on message as much as you can keep Donald Trump on message.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the publicly internal bickering that we saw before. The main campaign people, like her and Caroline Levitt, they were there throughout from start to finish. So this was good for the campaign, and I think that helped him a lot.
And like it or not, I think Steve Bannon was a source of a lot of strife in the first administration. The Steve Bannons of the world,
Yeah.
Well, who is it?
What's that?
Well, who is it that we should want to see back in the administration? Maybe Peter Navarro.
Pompeo. Mike Pompeo. Want to see him back?
Yeah, I think they're talking about Pompeo as possible defense secretary.
I would love to see Bob Ehrlich as either. I could see Governor Bob at transportation or at education. I think he would be much better and more effective than Betsy DeVos. I love Betsy DeVos, but I think Bob Ehrlich can actually convey the agenda better than Betsy DeVos, because Betsy DeVos was hated from day one by the teachers' unions. With Governor Bob, the teachers would just have a strong dislike instead of a hate. It would just be, we really, really don't like you because they hate you.
Yeah,
I like the boss though. But
yeah, I like to see Pompeo back, but I think he needs as clean and fresh a slate as he can get this time around.
Yeah.
And kind of set these people up for the future, and maybe if they've got some senators potentially that are in very safe seats, or a governor that.
Well, he's talking about Mike Lee being an AG, which I think would be excellent choice.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a potential.
He might actually even be the youngest AG in history. Yeah.
I think Bob Barr did a good job, though. But he's not. He's out. He's on the outs with Trump. I realize that. But I thought Bob Barr did a good job as AG.
Yeah, I think Mike Lee would be a nice fresh face for AG. He'd be good. Ted Cruz might end up on the Supreme Court if there's a vacancy.
Are you talking about Bill Barr?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Bob Barr wouldn't be bad either. No, I meant Bill.
we like Bill. We like Bob.
Yeah, that's right.
Bob Barr from Georgia.
Well, speaking of the court, there's already talk, and I don't know what Democrats might try to do in the lame duck session, but the left is still obsessed with Sonia Sotomayor. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and trying to get her to get out so that Biden gets a young appointment.
Honestly, Sonia Sotomayor, stay there. My advice to you, don't leave. You've worked hard. You are a wise Latina woman. Do not leave. Show me that you are a wise Latina.
I know. Here, look at us. We're conservatives. We're rooting for Sonia. I mean, she's 70. I mean, she's still younger than some other. I mean, she with Supreme Court justices and women. I mean, she could go on for another 15 years without a problem in all likelihood.
That's true. But the talk is that in the 2 years that maybe Alito or Thomas might then switch out to guarantee.
I think Thomas will probably leave before Alito. I think Thomas would get,
I love both of them. Actually, they're the two best judges. And the reality is, I don't think we could replace them with anyone better.
I agree with that 100%. Yes. Yeah. I don't want to see them leave, but what is it, 76 and 74, I think, of their ages.
Yeah, so they could still survive. They could still go on for a good bit longer.
But the risk is that if you lose the Senate, and the presidency, then in 2028, 4 years from now, they would be 80 and 78.
You're playing Russian roulette with the Grim Reaper.
Then the risk is that you'd lose the conservative majority to liberals. So this is a little tricky.
And the other thing we have is these guys. We need. I think if Thomas or Alito were to step down, they should do it after President Trump is sworn in. I want to say they should do it in the first year. So God knows he's not going to really have a honeymoon period, but right now we can push it through and get him done really fast.
Yeah.
I think if, by the way, I don't know if you saw on election day, all the Democrats had to post, vote like Ruth sent you. So I put on there, well, we're going to vote like Anton Scalia sent us.
Yeah.
And that triggered so many lefties. It's like,
one of the other issues that the Republicans are going to face is that, Mitch McConnell is going to be replaced as the majority leader in this case now. I mean, now
I think it's John Cornyn.
So, are these other guys that are potential, successors, are they really as good as Mitch has been at bringing everybody together and getting those votes through? That's gonna, that's gonna be very interesting to see. That's a special skill that not everybody has.
And I think Thune and Cornyn, and I think Cornyn can do it better than Thune, frankly, would be better. Rick Scott, he just got to the Senate. I don't think he's experienced enough to be in leadership, frankly. I like Senator Scott. He's my home away from home senator.
I don't think Scott's got enough pull with the fellow members.
I think Cornyn would be really great, as in leadership, frankly. John Cornyn would be great. Because he's got, everybody likes the guy too. That's the difference, is people like John Cornyn. They also like.
Isn't Thune next in line? But it might not be Thune.
Thune has disappointed me on a couple of issues, but I think Cornyn should go for it because I just think he's a better senator than Thune. That's all.
Go with a fresh face, Bernie Moreno.
Thune is from.
Hey, funny. He's a freshman. We'll put him in charge.
Yeah, I know. But here's the thing: John Cornyn is from a big state, an oil state.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and more important. I'm not saying that whichever Dakota John Thune's from is not important, but
yeah.
Well, in the end, it's going to be those guys. I mean, the ones that are running, they're gonna. It's going to be part of their skill to see how many votes they can line up for themselves, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And that'll also tell you, whether or not they can possibly be a good leader, because they've got to be able to gather those votes together. It'll be an interesting race for that.
I just thought of something though. Remember, we got to replace JD Vance.
Right.
Now, is there any way Mike DeWine could screw this up? I bet he could do it.
That worried me too.
That would worry me. I mean, you got Mike DeWine, and if it can be screwed up, DeWine will do it. But how could he screw it up?
Would be a great.
Or is there special election?
He could do it. He'll do an appointment. There'll be an election next November in 2026.
Okay, good. Because I don't want him to. I fear that DeWine, Kelly, Chris Christie did this. He screwed us over once this way. He had the power to appoint someone, but he decided not to do it. Have an election, the Democrat won, and I don't know if DeWine would pull something that stupid.
Oh, I think
I can appoint a good rock star conservative, but let's have a vote.
You know what I think DeWine would do? He'd probably put John Kasich in.
Yeah, something stupid like that. I could see DeWine doing that.
I remember John. I still remember John when he was part of the revolution of '94.
Yeah, I remember, and I remember he ran for president. Remember briefly in 2016.
Yeah,
so Vance is. He gets whoever he appoints gets to serve until 2026, the rest of Vance's term.
Oh, good news. All right. So okay.
Actually, if Mike DeWine were smart, he'd put Vivek Ramaswamy in.
He'd do what?
Put Vivek in. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Is he from Ohio?
Yeah, he's from Columbus.
So the Columbus Dispatch says names that are floating around: Ohio State Party Chair Jane Timken, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, and State Senator Matt Dolan are some possibilities. It's still a little early, And I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to be like, oh yeah, I want you to consider me. And we'll have to kind of see how that goes. Yeah, but yeah, it is a thing. It's like governors can blow it, right? I mean, we have seen we've seen Republican governors appoint the wrong people, and then those people then lose the following election, and then you're like, it happened in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I tell you, I wonder if they go back to the future and bring back Rob Portman or someone like that for the Senator of Ohio.
Yeah. No, I think Portman's done. Yeah.
Portman would not be bad. I mean, he's not the best, but he's not, the worst either.
Yeah, he's okay. He's like a bushy. But you guys remember the George Voinovich days, and wasn't there a Taft running around? Not the famous one, but one of the
grandson. I think he's like the great grandson of Bob Taft.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think he was a senator from Ohio, wasn't
he? Yeah, I think he might have been, or as governor for a time. I think there was a Taft.
Yeah, Bob Taft. Yeah.
That was one of those little family dynasties. You had the Bushes in Texas, you had the Tafts in Ohio,
the Kennedys in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
The
Agnews in Maryland.
Maryland does not have a political dynasty. You think if
I was just joking with the Agnews of Maryland.
Mm-hmm. They've only had one Agnew.
But if Maryland did have a political dynasty, it would be bad. Probably it'd be the Glendennings or the or someone bad.
Or actually, what's funny? Until Paris Glendenning, our Maryland Democrats were not as crazy. We still didn't like them, but we compared to what we have now. It's kind of like in Montgomery County, right? Which
actually, Maryland kind of almost did have a dynasty in a sense. Remember, Larry Hogan's father was a congressman.
Yeah.
So if Larry had someone to pass it down to.
So I'm looking up this stuff about Bob Taft, right? So he was William Howard Taft's son, but he endorsed Sherrod Brown.
Jeez Louise.
What is the matter with these people?
And the Bush girls, at least one of them endorsed Harris.
Yeah, Barbara Bush. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Is that the one that's not the one that's married to John Hager's son, right?
No, that's Jenna.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jenna would never do that. We always knew she was the smart twin, Jenna Bush.
Oh, was she? And John, I remember Hager, the boy. I met him once.
Because
I know Henry. Henry.
Well, when John ran for governor, right? Again, Mark Early ran for governor. Hager and I want to say, who was the other Republican? There was like three prominent Republicans that ran, and everyone.
Jay Katzen. Remember Jay Katzen? But maybe Katzen was later. Yeah.
It was not Katzen. No, Katzen lost the primary.
Okay.
To
Jay Katzen,
he lost the primary to Mark Early.
All right.
But it was like Mark Early was the AG.
Yeah.
The lieutenant governor was John Hager, and they both ran for governor. And I mean, Mark Early is a conservative guy, but everybody in the movement conservatives were all lining up behind John Hager.
Yeah,
like
that's
I think
right.
Paul, David Keene, they all supported John Hager over Mark Early.
Yeah, and it was an odd thing. I think it was based on one single issue or one vote that Early had a lot of union maybe folks in his.
He was bad on right to work. Remember Dick Dingman?
I remember Dingman.
He was former councilman from the town of Vienna.
Yeah.
He was a big Mark Early guy.
Oh, he was Early. Okay, because Early was socially very conservative.
Yeah.
Early
Paul was always with. I mean, Paul liked John Hager more than he liked Mark Early.
Yeah. I met Hager. I liked Hager, by the way. He was great.
I liked all of them. I think they were both great guys. I think Mark Early was a good guy. I think John Hager was a good guy too.
And John
Jim
Hager,
Gilmore.
Well, despite John Hager it was a tragic story. He contracted polio when he was like college aged, and so he was confined to a wheelchair. But the thing about him is he had a special car where he could drive it because he had a lot of money. He was a successful businessman, So I remember once at Leadership Institute, he was going to come to speak, and I was told go wait outside for him.
Mhm.
And I kind of almost thought, well, maybe he'd be with a staffer who was going to drive him and all. No, it was Hager. He was pulling up.
Mhm.
So despite being in the
He did.
wheelchair, he was driving a car. So he pulled up
Yeah.
and
Well, Paul Wyrick used to drive too. Remember, in the early days, he used to drive when he had hand controls for the car.
oh, did he? Okay, all right.
Yeah. Then
I
he got that drive. Then he got a driver.
okay, I didn't know that.
Uh,
Oh, Joe Star. Joe Stars used to do some driving for him.
and it's funny. You mentioned that. I remember when Joe Stars told me that story. I go, Joe, you were living the American. You came to NET Free Congress as a driver. And look at you now. You're a vice
Yeah.
president because
Yeah.
they did promote him. Maybe a vice president over there.
Yeah, it's just
And I go, you're like the Horatio Algers of Free Congress.
yeah. But hopefully, we if we have the House, that really will help us really help
Mhm.
Trump. Because if not, I think they try to impeach him early on something. It may be risky for Democrats to impeach him in this glow of victory. And this time, I think Trump will have more of a honeymoon than he did. He had no honeymoon in 2017.
By the way, Jamie Raskin still says he's going to block his appointment. And then you got these idiots they've got this petition. Let me pull it up and find it and share it with you. They've got this petition that's being pushed called, it's called Sign the Petition to Pass Chuck Schumer's No King Act and Strip Trump of his immunity. Go stop Trump.io/ and I'm like, first of all, it's Mr. President to you, you dumbasses, first of all.
One thing I wonder is if the celebrities will mount their campaign to encourage the Electoral College not to vote to certify Trump.
I wonder if they'll leave.
Huh?
I wonder if those celebrities are going to leave the country.
That's true. But you know what I'm wondering? Wasn't there a Supreme Court ruling after that 4 years ago that basically said an elector can't be faithless? If you're an elector, you've got to vote for which is the way it should be. Right. But I think that was always unclear. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong. I think the court already ruled on that you have no choice but to certify that.
Oh, we're at final thoughts. It's 8 o'clock, guys.
Geez, sorry.
Final thoughts. Yeah. And we'll start with you, David. Final thoughts.
Well, I'm very happy and optimistic about Trump in the 4 years. So I'm very thankful, and it's interesting to hear the media whining about it. One thing I never watched NPR. I never usually watch. It was PBS. They did their. It was the old McNeil Lehrer when that show, which was always good. The News Hour.
McNeil Lehrer.
They still do the News Hour, and the two political commentators are both Democrat, David Brooks and Jonathan Gayford. And so I figured I'll give them a shot and I'll watch and see what their analysis is. And the first thing it starts off with, Gayford asserts that Trump's misogynist. David Brooks then says, I agree he's a misogynist. And so I clicked it off. So I stopped watching that. So,
yes. And I guarantee the stories, that are going around. Somebody has posted this on, they think a Republican is, I think it's a Democrat that's doing this. Greetings, Monette M. You have been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation. Be ready at noon at 12 p.m. sharp with your belongings. Our executive slaves will
I understand.
Get you.
The media's trying to link. Well, they're trying to link it to Trump, but of course that's ridiculous. But otherwise, doing okay, and hopefully,
you're not wrong there, Facebook user. Who we don't know who you are,
and hopefully we can take the House. Anyway, that's it. Bye.
Final thoughts, Donovan. Go.
Yeah, I mean, great week for conservatives. Great week for Trump, obviously. One of my questions I put on here was like, what happened to all the Democrats who voted for Biden in 2020, right? He had 81 million votes, and Kamala's got just under 70 at this point. Trump is basically, right now, with more votes yet to be counted, he's basically at the point he was 4 years ago. So, Trump has maintained, or he will increase the number of voters he had voting for him from 4 years ago, whereas the Democrats saw these things go down. And then just the stunning, victory that Trump had by, winning a wide swath of the Hispanic vote, increasing the black vote, did pretty well with women, not younger women. Younger women are still kind of nutty. I mean, I noticed that a lot of my friends from church, their daughters, the ones I saw on Facebook that are active, I have studied the issue very closely, and I am proud to say I've cast my vote for Kamala Harris. And I'm like, oh, just shoot me. What is wrong with you people? But this confirms that Gallup study that young women, these millennials, they have shifted far to the left, right? So they're in that camp, but they're not enough of them to shift the dynamic and make a difference in the vote here. Abortion, big issue in the 2022 midterms. Democrats are doing well. Pro-lifers wanted to have Roe v. Wade done away with. Okay, that's done. We talk about give it back to the states, but unfortunately, a lot of the states are voting to codify abortion into their constitution. But that's kind of what we asked for, right? So that's part of our part. There were 10 of these things on the ballot. Luckily, Florida's pass rate had to be 60%. They got to 57, so they escaped that one. But despite the fact that there were 10 abortion measures from 10 different states about doing this, it wasn't enough to push Harris over the finish line, right? This was even happening in states she lost. I thought potentially this was going to be a problem for her, for the Republicans, is that the abortion issue was going to be like 2022 and would help Harris get the votes she needed in these blue wall states and things like that, where they needed to do things, and it didn't. So her campaign was a failure on so many levels. It's just
Don, all those extra votes that Joe Biden got, they all died of COVID. They all died of COVID. That's why.
Well, if you're a real conspiracy theorist, you're like, okay, she's got about 70, he had about 81. Yeah, what happened to those people?
They all died of COVID, Don.
Do those people even exist?
They all died of COVID. The last thing they did was they put those ballots in the mail and voted for Joe Biden. Then they just kicked the bucket. That's all that happened. They all died of COVID.
I mean, if you want to look at conspiracy, you want to kind of question things. You could always say too that, okay, there's a lot of scrutiny on this election and about integrity, and voting and things like this, and whether or not that has cast a little bit of a pall for the Democrats, are like, oh, I don't know if I should be voting, am I a legal voter and stuff like that. So, we may have had this time around a little bit more of an honest vote. I mean, I don't, what was it? The Babylon Bee, I heard because they always do this funny thing is that Democrats agree that Trump won in 2020, so he's ineligible for a third term. But it's not far off the mark, right? I mean,
yeah, but they all died of COVID, Don. They all died.
You got to love it when the Democrats eat each other. That they are they're blaming Biden, they're blaming Harris, they're blaming all kinds of things to try to figure out how they lost this election. They got I mean, they're blaming Biden for deciding to run for re-election, right? And then then he stepped out. They threw him out basically and put in who they thought was the next person up, and then they raised all kinds of money. They way outraised Donald Trump, and it still didn't do him any good, right?
Yep.
But I mean, we've talked about this too on the show, right? Harris could not get out of her own way. Nobody understood what the heck she stood for. What was her economic policy? How was she going to be different than Biden? None of this stuff was explained at all. And so therefore, why do you want another 4 years of that versus something, of Trump? You've already experienced some of that. And I think you felt that in general, you did pretty well under Trump the first time around. So why can't I have a good time? Why can't we benefit again by a second term? So interesting things. We talked about. I'm happy to see Karine Jean-Pierre and the Biden cabinet.
But did you see her reaction? The other was it yesterday or Wednesday when she goes, "No, the president did not, blah 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 blah," and she upped and walked out of that room because she could take the heat from that one Fox reporter.
The worst press secretary in history. I can't. There's no one that I know in my lifetime that comes anywhere close to being this bad. She was just absolutely horrid and everything like that. And so, that's the other thing. Trump needs a good press secretary. There was a lot of movement in the press secretary position in his first term. You can't have that.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders is busy with another job.
Yeah, you can have. It's okay if you have a couple, but you got to stick to no more than two. Preferably, if you can have one that will stick out the entire 4 years, that'll be even better. So that would be my preference. And there are probably a lot of qualified people. Even Caroline Leavitt, maybe that's her reward for that if she wants the job. But we'll wait and see how that goes and all that. And then congratulations to Kelly Ayotte for winning the New Hampshire gubernatorial race.
Yep.
I think that'll be a good landing spot for her. And bye to the LA District Attorney George Gascon. He was horrible. All that stuff that he did was terrible. London Breed is gone. Not that San Francisco anything makes any difference, right?
Yeah.
And then my man Elon, or at least Marcus's man Elon.
Yep.
He probably made at least, on paper, at least $30 billion when the stock rose this week after the election. He is now worth over $300 billion again. And so lots of distance between him and anybody else on that. And Tesla's has now passed the $1 trillion mark again. And maybe it'll stay there for a little while. I was surprised at how fast that rose. I was just like, wow.
Well, we had a 1,400 swing just from Tuesday to Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was. Yeah. No, I mean, bank stocks. Lots of things that where the market said, oh, yeah, this is good for corporate because we're not going to see the high corporate taxes that Biden proposed, right? Less regulation. One of the people I definitely won't be sad to see go is Lena Khan at the FTC, because that FTC has been horrible under Lena Khan. So let's get the free market to allow it to work instead of saying every merger is bad for America. So anyway, that's enough pontificating. Back to you, Dwight.
Yeah, I would like to say congratulations, DC Democrats, for not disappointing me. You did it before. You voted for Marion Barry for mayor after he was a convicted felon, and now just this past Tuesday, under suspicions of bribery and corruption, councilman of Ward 8, Marion Barry represented Ward 8 for years and years and years. This guy is following the footsteps of Marion Barry. Trayvon White Sr. was reelected overwhelmingly, which tells me
must be a Ward 8 thing.
I know, it's like they just like criminals, I think, did Donald Trump win Ward 8? I mean, these people, and they have the audacity to go, oh, we have a convicted felon. Only reason he's got a felony is because the prosecutor in the city of New York had a political agenda that turned misdemeanors into felonies when he's typically known to turn felonies into misdemeanors. So I don't want to hear any more. We elected a felon. When you keep electing people like Trayvon White, you've elected Marion Barry in the past. There's a guy named Mayor Curley in Boston was elected while he was sitting in jail. So Democrats, stop calling the president a felon. He's not a felon. He just trumped up a bunch of charges to make him a felon. And by the way, be very careful. Be very careful. It's like, I bet you didn't think we'd be back in charge, did you? But also, election season is over. We have Veterans Day Monday. I believe in one holiday at a time. So, put out your Veterans Day decorations and wear your poppies on Monday. It is Veterans Day, and
All right.
thank a vet, you know. And there's a lot. What do you call it? So yeah, you know, and that's about it. Oh, and we've got one last thing. I am running for Maryland State GOP first vice chairman. Please vote for me. And also, even better than that, we have the upcoming Christopher Cachaballa Toys United States Marine Corps Toys for Tots campaign party December 9th, Sunday in Potomac, Maryland. Go to Montgomery County Rotary Club.com, go to events, fill out the RSVP. It's a free event. All we ask is you bring a toy. That's all. Good night, everyone. See everyone next week.
All right.
Yep.
Good night.